Hi.
Hi. If you can just give a small introduction about what you do and what got interested, how did you start investing in this space? We will talk about the numbers and business models later, but what was that spark that actually ignited for you to come into this space?
Thanks, Ujjwal. So I actually had a little bit of an aha moment. I had invested in this company called Drink Prime, which does water as a service. And I realized that there is an economic model when you don't need to own anything. So I was wondering, I was actually asking a question, why do we own anything and why is there no benefit on why aren't we just subscribing to things instead of owning them? And I actually tried to understand the entire math. And what I realized is things that are owned can be converted to new at a fraction of a cost. So I realized that this actually makes economic sense. It has more efficiency, and actually it also solves for like a jobs to be done for the customer. And the more the more the product standardized, the easier this will become to do. So when I saw that, I was like, we are simply scrapping things, getting new things and then destroying them again. And just because we wanted to look little different, we're just probably going and buying the next new model or the next new thing. And I was like, if this was flipped, this actually makes more economic sense for the customer and for the environment. And when I saw that, I actually got, I wanted to understand how does this circular economy thing work. So I went online, read about it, and I was like, actually there is more efficiency and less consumption of the environment and a different kind of ease in doing this if the business models are twisted, and hence I thought it became a big opportunity. So this moment was when I realized, and then I started going deeper.
Is there something other than circular economy in the climate space that you're also interested about?
So specific for me, it's actually about efficiency. This was just an efficient business model that I gave you an example about. But even companies, if they really take environment into consideration, they will be able to bring a lot of efficiency in businesses. So any business that is being more efficient than the other, from the traditional ways, and efficiency could be, using equipment better, efficiency could be doing things differently, but having an impact on the environment. I think those businesses interest me specifically. Yeah.
Great. So I just want to have another question. What are we really solving for, both in climate space as well as when we look at specifically the circular economy space? Is there something that we are looking to solve because of the waste that is available? Is there something else that most people are unable to see? So what is your take on that?
So, I'd actually split this into possibly three types of business models that we live in. One is a linear business model. You make, you sell, you consume, and you scrap it. Most of that scrap is in the landfills that we see. And then I can call it like recycling economy, or you can call it half circular, whatever you
Correct.
want to call it. It's not really cradle to cradle, but.
Correct.
And here is when, where people are now taking all this waste, which is in abundance and in some form or the other, and now saying, what can we do about it?
Right.
So that is the second business model. And the third business model is where this whole thing is closed looped.
Right.
Each of these business models itself have, impact on climate. If the linear business models make sure that, they are as efficient as they can be, or use lesser resources, or don't use resources that they don't need to use, like things like thermocol, which has a major impact on the environment, they will start creating an impact on the climate. The second is it's not like recycling businesses didn't exist, but they have a new flavor because people are now being able to create more products around it.
Correct.
And as we create more products, we are going to have more efficient use of the environment, of the resources of the environment. And third is we create a closed loop right at the beginning, where we give you something, we ask you to use it. At the end of its life, you return it back, and we know what's best to do with it. I was right now giving you an example of like Drink Prime. There's another company called Circo Life which I support, and that's primarily in a way like they're giving you cooling equipment, they're telling you to use it back. Once there's some contract, it makes economic sense for the customer as well, and once you're done, you return it. Yeah, I'm also an investor in Everest Fleet, which is my friend's company. And I asked him one question, and this is when, as I asked more questions, it got more ingrained in me, the
Right.
logic of it. I asked him one question that, you will scrap cars at 5 years, 7 years, 8 years. Can you explain to me why would we buy a new windshield? And if we don't buy a new windshield and the product is standardized and we use the old windshield into a new car, then would you call it an old car? So when I started looking at these flips in these business models, that is when my mindset started changing. One more thing that's happened is the world has moved to product centricity. So they are really asking, what work does this product get done for me? It's more than saying I use where it's about pride, saying I use only first hand, or I use my product has nothing recycled in it, it is all virgin material. People at the end of the customers asking if it's doing the job for me, it's fine. I'm not saying this has happened in all categories. In fact, it has happened in very few categories, but the categories that it's begun in, I definitely see there's a long way, there's a big opportunity.
So why do you think this problem is extremely urgent here in India with the circular economy space, with the waste that is available? Why do you see that there is an urgent requirement for startups to focus on circular economy?
So there are multiple things. India is yet in the early stages of development. So a lot's going to happen. The more we develop, the more waste will, there'll be more waste. What we also don't understand that the world's resources are limited. Like we are the largest cable and wire manufacturer in India, and copper prices have been going up in the last couple of years, and it will keep going up if we don't get recycling into the business. And so if you don't add layers of these things, first of all, there'll be inflation because the material costs will keep going up as you will consume more. Second is there's no space to keep the waste. In fact, I don't know if any of you all have observed, but if you go to any small town where they don't have a complete waste system, you will see a lot of plastic just, in every corner, and nobody can do
Correct.
anything about it.
Correct.
So there will be chaos at some point in time. We know what's happening with climate change. We already see a lot of change in the way, even in Mumbai, it's hotter, sometimes the rains come late, a lot is changing, the winters are shorter.
Correct.
We've seen a lot of those things happening as well. So I think at this point of time, we can't imagine what a big problem this is going to be. But, just think about it. You have tons and tons, 63,000 crores of waste being generated
Absolutely.
every year, and people not knowing anything to do about it. I also want to say, right, waste is in many forms. I read one article which said that the number of clothes that are available in the world right now are equal to the number of clothes that people need for 100 years. So that is what is our consumption pattern.
Right.
And when anybody goes back to the their cupboard, and even I do, and we see the number of things that we have which are not used for the entire year, sometimes are all wasted resources.
Correct.
Right? And then we buy more and scrap more. So there is just this cycle. The more this cycle will grow and the more urbanization will take place in India, the deeper the problem.
What do you feel is the situation on the ground today in India specifically for waste, and how is this being taken care of by companies or startups that you're working with?
So in general, I think it's a big problem. Many municipalities don't know what to do with all the waste that is getting generated. Even collection is becoming a challenge. And the bigger problem, yes, lies with the government, because at the end of the day they have to sort a lot of that stuff out. But as far as the startups that I am working with, they kind of are creating a better channel to work on that. So for example, Scrap Uncle, there's an informal channel for collection of waste, and I think that is highly inefficient. Many people, those people cannot afford machinery. A lot of those transactions happen in cash. The customers are being fleeced. And what Scrap Uncle really does is goes direct to the customer. They've created a platform and they go and collect the material directly and then safely make sure that it reaches the right place for the right recycling or the right refurbishment or any kind of things that we can reuse it for, right? So when this entire trade will get organized and people who actually know, they can use engineering, they can use technology to understand what they can do with the material, we will have way more efficient systems and the use of material will go down. Similarly, like I said, I did mention Circo-Life, what we're doing in cooling as a service. The end vision is closed looping the world. Right. Why does anybody need to own any appliances? Just use it, get the job done, correct, and probably at the end of the day return it. And only the guys who created the asset know what to do with it. Right. And I think Apple has been doing this very well with its repurchase programs and then redeploying. It's not so clear in electronics, but hopefully one day they will also figure out what to do with all those parts and then just make sure that it's used in the most optimal manner.
Right.
Yeah.
So when we spoke about Scrap Uncle, how do you know that you're betting on the right founders with Circo-Life or Scrap Uncle, and you know that exactly this is the idea and it's actually making business sense and not just an environment or a social change that people talk about?
See, first is as far as the founder goes, the founder has to be at least slightly purpose oriented. They actually should know what they're building. They're not just building a business, but they are taking the ecosystem into consideration while building a business. So I need to see that spark, that they understand that this problem is big enough and they would love to solve it. And it's not just that it's cool that I'm building a sustainable business and I want to do something like that. So I think that is clearly evident with people like when I met Ganesh, right, and he has this water startup, and I just saw that this guy wants to do so much for the environment. Correct. But Ganesh is one extreme. Even at an early day when people understand the size of the problem, and I know that they won't get digressed and end up doing something else because that's where the money is, that is something I need to test right in the beginning. Second is, are they customer focused or no? Because I was just having a chat with a platform yesterday which is working on building materials, and they were like, oh, this is not scaling up. So the big thought that came to me is because they are not solving customer problems. Correct. You have to, the difference in a sustainable startup is they are solving customer problems while taking the environment into consideration. The linear economy does not do that. Right? The circular economy makes sure it does that. So if these two ingredients are there, the third most important thing to see is unit economics. Absolutely. Because and unit economics means two things. You see a gross margin today, but you should be able to imagine it to be a large organization so you need scale unit economics as well, right? Because when organizations grow, then you need to add layers of people and all those costs come up. So as if these three criteria are fulfilled, then I'm not worried, because we could have our ups and downs, but if there is a large market and these three things are there, then I can really back that founder and actually stay the course. I'm not worried about a few downfalls, because if the business potential is there, I would stick it through with them, right? So that's what I look at, and it's been quite exciting so far.
So when we were just discussing prior to this podcast, how you focus on companies that are customer focused, that are solving for a customer problem, and that then leads to solving for climate. Can you elaborate a little bit more, give some examples of that, if you have seen some of those startups?
Yeah, so we can take this startup called Ricron, right? And you as well, you just gave me the wonderful example, sure, right? So Ricron, a lot of large companies who are constructing, those companies are their customers, and they have a pressure on ESG, they have a pressure on creating the environment, and they also feel towards being responsible for their stakeholders. Right. Environment is one of them. So Ricron is taking multi-layer plastic and converting into panel boards and trying to supply to construction companies. Now these companies are actually looking for manufacturers who can actually help them become more and more carbon negative as they go forward, which is going to help them, publish good results and, be responsible companies. So as I see Ricron, first is we can say, okay, someone can take multi-layer plastic and do something about it. But what I saw is Ricron actually made a very good product which could be replaced with existing products.
Right.
And the customer would accept it gracefully. Those products look very good. So you can't say that we are a sustainable company, so it should not look good, because the consumer has not changed, right? The consumer requires the same old things. So the product looks very good. It's very stable. There's a lot of engineering that's gone behind it. And it solved a customer problem. Right. Similarly, I was telling you about Scrap Uncle, right?
Yeah.
Or Drink Prime. Scrap Uncle, people don't know where to scrap. In fact, a lot of people have a lot of electronics at home and nobody is reminding them they should let it go. And when you have a platform right in front of you, you can take advantage of it and do it. So it's solving a customer problem, but there's a layer of education that is needed. The customer is not aware. So you got to create awareness. So it's like a need that the customer has, but they don't know, or they don't know they can solve for it. So we got to, communicate and create.
Yeah, that. I'll give you my example as well, right? So at Lucro, we started with manufacturing products for large FMCG companies, mainly into packaging space. And then we moved back into recycling and then collection. So we were not solving a problem of waste, but we were solving a customer focused problem of packaging which required waste content in it. So that's how we also went about building our company. And that, I think, is what most founders are not looking at today. They're trying to solve a waste problem. They should actually be solving a customer problem.
Yes, and there is unit economics if you solve customer problem. And I think your story is extremely inspiring. You're solving one of the biggest problems of packaging. Most companies don't know how to solve that, and I think it's going to make a huge difference.
Now let's move from stories and how you're evaluating customers to actually evaluating business models in this space. How are you looking? Let's say if a founder comes up to you and pitches you their business model, what are the things that you're looking at in terms of whether you will support that founder or not?
Yeah, so the first thing is market size. Small markets or small initiatives won't solve a big problem. Second is product market fit. Does the founder have some understanding of the customer, where we are actually going to be able to solve a problem, taking environment into consideration? And that is generally the tougher part, and I see this more in spaces like the challenges in places like fashion, because the customer has a lot of options and a lot of things to see, and they want their red color and their blue color clothes or things like that. So the customer has to be very, very aware. So in that case, I would look at if the company has a unique way of communicating to the customer, creating that mind space in front of the customer that they want, right? And that's number two, right? A lot of us look for vegan leather. I saw this brand called Neiman's, and I bought those shoes which are made of, they're reprocessed material. I don't know all the details, that's what I read. And I was looking for shoes which are not made of leather.
Correct.
So they know that many people in India say we don't get vegan shoes, or we don't get. And I so went online and I was like, this is there, right? Yeah. So first of all, if they understand this nuance, then if they can communicate it differently, I recommend everyone should read Simon Sinek's Start With Why, because they say customers don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Correct. So the more you can get the angle of Start With Why, I think you could have customers listening to you a little more.
Sure.
And if you've got the first two, so you either find a way to communicate or you already solve a problem.
Right.
The next thing that I would check, like I said, was on scale market fit. Okay. If I don't see that this business is scalable under certain unit economics, I will not back it. And I also feel there's a little bit of something that you're doing as well, is what I realize in these businesses, you have to do a little bit of end-to-end ecosystem. Otherwise, the business is too fragmented for you to close the loop. So if some some founder has that vision that how it's going to look at in the end, I would want to take that into consideration while doing that. Rest for me is operational business process, which is it's just a journey. Even at Polycab, we learn every day on how to do things better. It's never going to end.
Right.
So if those first three are there at this stage, that's what would qualify for me.
If I would to ask you, what are the three top products in waste that you really think you should be solving, or founders should be looking at solving for, where such models can play out very well?
See, I definitely think clothes,
Right.
because we consume a lot of clothes. I would say that would be one of the things. Second would be appliances, because they can be very easily recirculated, remanufactured.
Correct.
Right? I would say appliances. And third is if there can be more and more use of shared economy. Like I know that with Uber and all the car companies coming up, if more people use resources which are shared in some manner instead of having idle cars at home, and for that the quality of the quality of the products will also have to go up.
Right.
And efficiency as well. The more we do all of that, these are big impact areas. Of course, packaging. I think packaging is huge. It's gonna have. It's the most wasted thing in a product if you think
Absolutely.
about it, right? Because you just want it to look good. Because in fact, we know that a lot of things are bought because the packaging is good,
Absolutely.
and not the actual product. It doesn't make a damn difference. So that's
Correct.
why it's important to the company, and the company can't exist without packaging. Quite often, but how you, of course, are. I think that's one of the biggest problems. In fact, what I was telling you, when you go to small towns and you see a lot of plastic on the road, most of that is packaging.
Absolutely.
Yeah, most of that is packaging.
So for everybody here, what we do is we make packaging products made from waste material. We not just use that packaging for FMCG, auto companies, white good companies, but also we collect it back after end of life. We collect it back from households, from retail establishments, from stores, and all of these different places where it is put to end of life. So once it's bought back, we have to segregate it, sort it, we have to recycle it, and then reuse it for packaging. It sounds very simple, but all of this takes a lot of effort in actually getting that same waste material back to life, and that is what Lucro is solving for.
And who are your customers, for example, and
So-
what does the product look like?
So product is basically packaging. It could be poly bags, it could be liner bags, it could be shrink wrap. When you buy a case of Coca-Cola or a Bisleri bottle, you get an outer wrapping on that. That is what we make from waste material. And our customers are like all the FMCG companies, starting with Unilever, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, ITC, Marico, all of these large FMCG companies that are working in this or are in requirement of packaging in this space.
I think it's also useful. I'm just
Yeah,
going
please.
deeper in your case study. It's also useful for everyone to understand what's the scale of your business and the scale that you operate in general.
So we are collecting around 50,000 tons of waste plastic every year. This is coming from 16 collection centers that we've set up in western part of India today. Now we are going ahead and setting up another 50,000 tons of that should be operational by end of 2025. So we would be collecting close to 100,000 tons of waste, out of which around 60,000 tons of waste would be recycled in a year, and we make products of around 35,000 tons. So we would be currently we are one of the largest in this space, and by far we will become one of the largest within this year.
And in terms of revenue, what does that look like for people who are also thinking about what you mentioned, right? Market size, business size.
So last year we did a revenue of around 200 crores. This year we are targeting a revenue of around 350 crores in top line. We've been profitable all our years of existence, whether it's, we started in 2012, so it's been a long journey, 13 years now that we've built this business. We started with solving for the customer problem. As Bharat said, try to solve a problem of the customer and then go backwards into solving the environment problem. If you only start with environment problem, you will not be able to solve a customer problem, which is the most key element of the talk today that we've had.
Now, Ujjwal, you have also been mentoring a few startups yourself. You're part of the Suspenders program where you're mentoring a few upcoming startups. Do you want to share, like, what are you mentoring them on and what are you looking in the startups that you're nurturing and mentoring?
So what we are looking for is specifically startups that have an idea of bringing waste into life, getting some kind of waste. So we are focusing on not just plastics but metals and as well as food waste. So we have a couple of startups that we have invested in also that are focusing on metals and food waste, and we are seeing how we can replicate our business models. We get a lot of waste in our waste streams that are food, organic waste specifically, as well as metals, and how can we use that material for better upcycling. So I have a couple of last questions for you. One is, how do we collaborate, policymakers, startups, companies, workers, because this space, as you know, is not, it's not like a tech company where you sit in a room and you can build a product.
Yeah.
This is actually going out in the sun and scrambling for waste, which has also become a scarce commodity in a sense, right?
Yeah.
So how do you see collaboration happening in this space?
In fact, I was just thinking when you were explaining that you were building the entire ecosystem. It's like most companies in the linear economy just end up doing one part of it. And you've actually, operationally, this is very hard to build every aspect at once, right?
Yeah.
And I should congratulate you. It's
Thank
outstanding. And I think the government is already worried about a lot of things, from electricity consumption increase to waste to managing with the growing population and urbanization. So one part is, we helping policymakers in our own way whenever they need some suggestions or become part of those communities. But, not all things are going to be solved by government, right? Because even in, like, the government came up with a policy for BLDC fans, which is 5-star fans. They are more efficient than any other fan. But yet the adoption is only 20-25%.
Correct.
Because to communicate with the customer is very expensive. So either, like I was telling you earlier, there has to be a unique way of communicating with the customer, which might or might not happen because you'll be lucky. The other thing that I see is, building communities like Sus Mafia. The more we talk about it, the more we make people aware about it, the more we add people to such communities. There is going to be a certain learning at every point in time where people will change their mindset slowly and steadily. And the more we communicate to others on why this is important. And the only way, the way to do that is probably have more platforms, more communities. And the good part is, today climate change, even kids know about climate change. So the problem is not that people don't want to solve for it or don't want to participate in the solution.
Correct.
The reality is people don't know.
Yeah.
So if we can do more to, create awareness as a community, I think the outcome will be better.
Yeah.
So yes, we can go to the government, help them. The government is already intelligent. They already know. They find a challenge with the execution because it's, we are a, 1.5 billion population country, so it's not possible to get through, and there are many other simple things like food and shelter problems yet need to be solved for many people.
Yeah.
So we all collectively can start new businesses, talk about it more, try to follow that lifestyle, which I would say is extremely hard. I have just started doing small things, and I think it's hard not because of my intent to do it. It's hard because the resources are not available to you. You don't know where to start. it took me long time to find the vegan shoes which look decent and I feel comfortable in. So you have to keep searching and build that community, talk more about it. I encourage more people to start that small journey of efficiency on consuming less where we can, and I think that is how the outcome will come. The government's already trying very hard. They have too many battles to fight, too many things, and they are doing their best in whatever they can. It's left on to us and the education system as well. Like in my children's school, they're already talking about this, and I think as the children become more aware, we'll all become more responsible.
What do you think about the EPR? I don't know if you know what EPR is.
Yes, I know what
right?
EPR is.
So EPR, what do you think about that? They've come out with EPR for not just plastic, for e-waste, for rubber, tires, for non-ferrous metals now, for paper. So what do you think about that? Is government's intent right, in the right side? And now what do we as founders as well as venture companies do to make sure that we can take this forward?
First of all, EPR is a great initiative because the best way to make people responsible is through policies, right? So EPR is an outstanding initiative, and we know companies have started thinking about it, and it's coming in more and more industries as we go forward. But EPR is also a very, very big opportunity because most companies can't solve all these problems by themselves, right? They are already large companies. They can't own the entire ecosystem. You've built an ecosystem business, but say from day one, but say you're already a $10 billion company. How do you build that ecosystem now, right? Because you already there's enough competition in your own industry, the battles that you have to fight. And this is where really good startups can come up, where you are solving the same problem for 10 companies together. And you are kind of using all kind of technologies like IoTization, serialization, various tracking mechanisms to make it easy for those companies. So I think it's a way to boost the economy as well.
Absolutely.
It's a way to help the environment as well. It's also a way to make the companies more responsible, and the companies will also they will have to change the way many of their materials operate. So if example, if they in many appliances, if they can prove that the material is biodegradable, so they don't need to take that material back. So they will be compelled to change some of the ways that they work, specifically for packaging, right? So you don't have to get packaging back if it's biodegradable, just send it to a center. If some of those changes can happen, so I think it's an outstanding initiative. Many such initiatives should come up, and I think the government's slowly seeping it in and making it work.
So I'll just give you my take on EPR. EPR is basically extended producer's responsibility. I think we in India have the best laws possible, at least in the plastic space, from anywhere around the world. EPR is in India. It's the first thing globally. India is the first country to actually implement EPR, and I think the credit goes to the government here that they've come out with the policy. Now it's for us to actually take this forward.
Yes, absolutely.
Ujjwal, I'm actually intrigued with your story. Can we have more details on it? So how you started this, because 2012 is like a generation ago.
So I didn't start with something called as circular economy. I started with something called as buyback and recycling. My idea was to get cheaper raw material. It was never about environment or sustainability, because there was nothing back then that was intriguing me on sustainable side. But of course there was a point where I had to make sure my business survived and sustained for a long duration. So the idea was, how do I get cheaper raw material? And that's where it started. I saw waste as a source of raw material for building a organization. And that's how my journey actually started. And it started with simple products, not premium products. Maybe you're doing premium products. I started with extremely household products, something which was very, very simple to make, like a garbage bag, and made from waste plastic. Before it was all made from virgin. I moved to waste. It helped me get an edge in the market over the other competitors that we had, and then moved my way through to other products, scaled into more premium category of products, which our customers wanted to then shift to. So it started with a small product which was inconsequential for larger scheme of things, but then that's how you start building your organization.
Thanks. But one last question for you. So, how do we take your business to other geographies? Because I know this is a pressing concern everywhere. This is not specific to Mumbai or Western India. I can get in touch with other people, maybe somebody who's watching here. Maybe you can tell them how do they reach to you to start the franchisee kind of thing in their own territory. A lot of people, I believe, they should be interested in this.
So we are not looking at franchising honestly right now. We are setting up our own centers in other parts of India. We are also going to Southeast Asia. So these are the two geographies that we are looking at, North India and Southeast Asia. Is where we are at Lucro. We are looking to broaden our scope of manufacturing. So that's how we are looking at this.
So, do you support something like incoming? Somebody reaches out to you that he wants to set up in their city or something.
Definitely, we can look at helping them as to what things they can do, the learnings that we've had, so that their learning curve becomes smaller. Definitely, we can work with them.
Thanks.
Yeah, actually, I want to just add, he's done the most perfect thing. Most people want to say, like, wanted to just, set a recycling plant and send the raw material to somebody else and get the actual customer problem to be solved by somebody else. But what he did is, he solved the environment problem by collecting the waste and solved the customer problem at the same time. That's the tricky part about sustainable startups. Maybe looking at sectors which that's why it started with sectors which have enough volume. But I think this is a perfect story of both being done at the same time.
Yeah, and this is done in India for many years now. Honestly, if you look at other materials like metals, you look at paper, you look at textiles to some extent. All of these materials have also been solved in a similar way, where people are looking for cheaper raw material, and now they've gone into the sustainable route.
I'll thank you again for actually an interesting conversation here. But as an investor, and we are early stage investor at Ankur Capital, and I've been looking into this space increasingly more from an investment standpoint. But where I increasingly grapple with is waste and circularity. Yes, thematically it's needed, the EPR benefits and the government policies coming up. But I still view this as maybe two key problems. Is essentially it's a very logistics intensive business, and getting your margins, because ultimately you're doing a for-profit business, right? So getting your margins stacked up on that reverse logistics, and that too when you're getting into B2C. And I know a few of the companies that I've spoken to as well, because they are also looking at funding, and so Bharat on that context without naming anyone. So that becomes, I think, a big challenge, because your LTVs and your repeatability, especially for a B2C in the segments that you would operate, like a paper, etc., I still understand, but paper, etc., are more commoditized and a little more fragmented as compared to maybe other segments of the waste and recircularity. And the second is it's a much more relatively operationally heavy intensive business, and we are here really talking about not just collection, right? We are talking about actual recycle also happening, and the intelligence or the recycle environment over here is also limited to maybe just dismantling and not really doing some true value add. So going forward as well, how do you kind of see this whole economy also shaping up? Because as an early stage investor, you're looking at a longer term perspective, where you're not just doing like collection, etc., which has to make its own unit economic sense, but it is also about getting it back into the thing. Because I think paper, packaging, etc., for different players, listed, unlisted, SME space, etc., have been able to scale to a certain extent. But what about other ones which are actually coming up?
So you spoke about logistics business, right? And it is too much logistics.
It is.
So what is Amazon? Or Zepto or Swiggy?
No, but it's also about with respect to your capital, right?
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, from a business perspective, all the product businesses are same in some matter, or some form or the other. So it's just that it's the ecosystem creation. So solving a customer problem, I'm going to keep repeating that. If you don't have that, don't imagine you're going to do anything with waste, right? It's not going to work. It won't make sense. And second is, The thing is, what did Amazon end up creating is it ended up creating an ecosystem, right? Through many parts of this thing. But if you solve a big problem, the customers are coming to you, the customers need you, the customers want you. As your sales increase, people surrounding you will create that ecosystem and will work around it. Is it a long journey? Absolutely. I don't think it is a, create a digital platform and put it online, and if everybody likes it, you have 1 million users and now you're worth $1 billion. But it's also way more sustainable. More people can win. It's not a winner take all, which is good. More people can win, and once you create that ecosystem, there'll be a tipping point where the way the world operates will change. I think it's a long journey, like any other physical business. It's not a short journey. But if you have first movers advantage, the learnings that you have of the ecosystem, there'll be a hockey stick that will come, and then you won't stop. So it is from that perspective early days, but if you focus on the customer and you focus on creating an ecosystem, you will win. If you don't do any of this and you just say there's some waste here and I want to do something about it, most likely there's going to be no business outcome. Over to you.
So I think waste businesses, if you don't touch waste, you're not going to do any waste business. And if you don't have a product that you can make out of waste business, I think it's going to fail.
It's going to fail.
So if you are only investing for collection, my suggestion to you is don't, because that is never going to work. And this is my experience, and I've seen many startups. Somebody came to me a month back and said, I am building a platform where I will solve the waste problem without touching waste. I said, you're going to fail, please leave.
Yeah.
So that, and most VCs are not able to understand this concept yet, that this is a physical business. This is not a digital business. Only of course, there are parts of digital environment that you can put into it, but this problem cannot be solved without touching it on the ground.
Yeah, Ujjwal, but I'll just add here, right? We will have to demonstrate the ecosystem.
Absolutely.
Once you become large enough, a partner ecosystem will come in.
Absolutely.
Right? So that partner ecosystem is a matter of time.
But the partner ecosystem also has to work on the ground.
Correct.
People are not
Absolutely.
able to visualize that them working outside an office space.
Yeah.
Which is what is the challenge, right?
Yeah.
You will have to work outside in the sun, go to the landfills, go to the waste where it is, collect it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, this is not going to work.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So it was great listening to both of you. So there was a lot of conversation which was focused on customer centric and then building upon to do something for the climate or environment. But say for example, there's certain kind of waste which actually needs focus upon, and currently we don't know how we can take it to the customer centric level or something like that. But if there are people who actually want to do something passionately about that and still want to create a sustainable business out of that, do you think that there's still a way about for that where you can actually thoda like piece by piece you can start building upon something? Okay.
My answer is no, because you be the customer and put yourself in that shoes. Someone comes with you something that you don't like, how often will you buy it? Maybe you'll get emotional and buy it once.
So for example, it's a product which is definitely is going to be in use, but customers do not know that it can actually be used or can be an alternatives to the existing something like that. So what do you feel about that?
So this is the tricky part, and I was just going to quote Simon Sinek again, that customers don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So then the next challenge that you have is, after coming up with a product, okay, and if there's a wide base of customers, right, not like a small B to big B which Ujjwal caters to, you will have to explain, you'll have to create a communication that kind of strikes a chord. And I think that's the next challenge before even going to scale market fit. So if you're able to communicate the why at the same time solving a problem, I saw that benefit in Circo-Life. We started with, in fact, we named a cooling subscription company by the name Circo-Life, right? And we were like, okay, so how do we do it? And when we pitched to the consumer in terms of why we're doing it, to what we do, and then how we're going to do it, we saw a flip in the customer's behavior. So you got to kind of crack that. It's like 100 pilots that you have to test, check, and then you will reach a point of where you will see what works. So it's I think this is the harder. Ecosystem is a different part of the journey. Most people are not focusing on this first journey. If you get this right, you are going to have a lot of ears listening to you. But if you don't get that journey right, you will have a product which nobody cares about. You're not able to break the clutter, and it will be treated as like any other FMCG or equivalent product, which many people create, probably burn a lot of money, and then maybe a brand gets created, and not vice versa. Yeah.
It's the same thing, right? If you don't create a product from waste first that actually sells in the market, doing all of the back end work is of no use.
Yeah.
And that is what, but once you create one product, that one hero product will help you create 20 other hero products.
And the ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the ecosystem.
Adding up to the ecosystem point, you are way ahead in the journey and you have went through all of that. You have actually created an ecosystem. What do you think should be the gestation period of this ecosystem building if a startup is coming up with?
I mean, for me, it took a long time. Now the gestation period
Can you speak in terms of years?
It could be anywhere between 3 to 5 years for these kind of startups to reach a certain scale, and it will take that much time.
It was 3 to 5 years for you back then also?
For me, it's been almost 12 years now that I've come to a scale. So, but it's going to be easier now because there is so much focus on circular economy, on waste products, all of that, right? So that's why your time to scale would become a little smaller, or
it is comparatively bigger than other startups
Absolutely.
that
Absolutely.
usually. Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's a saying, you burn your first 1,000 days.
Thank you so much.
The harder the better initially. People won't come in, you have more time.
Hi, I'm Tapasvi Bhargav from Quality Bioenergy. My question is mainly related with Ujjwal. You said, Ujjwal, you collect around 50,000 tons of waste every year, which is a lot in terms of volume, and through 16 different centers. Was it always consolidated, like waste was always available in centers? How did you consolidate the collection? Because how do people who are generating waste reach out to you, or you reach out to them, or how did that got consolidated, because that is your key raw material? So if you can explain more on that.
So we did not go about consolidating waste. We went and saw where the waste was available. We saw who were using that waste right now. We saw that it is actually going to landfill. So what we've done is we've set up collection centers on the landfill. So any waste that comes from your household, it gets segregated at the landfill site by people we employ, and that's how we created our own waste as a raw material.
So all these centers are on a landfill site.
Correct.
Where the waste was already reaching.
Correct.
Okay. And then logistics and everything is.
Then it's a regular business where you have logistics in play, where you have manufacturing in play, and where you have product sales in play.
Hi. My name is Siddhi Dalmia. I represent a fund called VC Grid. We invest into early growth opportunities. Question is more pointed to Bharat. So we practice something called conscious investing because we are custodians to our investors. We have to make money. It's as simple as plain as it gets. Now, a lot of struggle is how do we find profitable businesses in sustainable economies which we can scale up. What we have identified as a sweet spot is cross-border themes. People doing groundwork in India but selling outside of India because of better margins, and customers are more nuanced to consume conscious products. As an investor, I want you to spill the beans. Tell me pointedly what are the sectors, opportunities, gaps that you see wherein you can make money while making an impact. So what is it that we can invest in, hit a pot of gold and sleep peacefully at the same time?
I'm actually feeling bad to tell you this, but I must. That logistics is the biggest problem in terms of carbon.
Okay.
So if you're making things in India and selling it abroad, you have created the maximum impact on the climate. Okay? So sustainability does not work. Sustainability actually is an ecosystem like how we lived, our ancestors lived. It's the same place where you grow something, there's cattle, you use everything in the, you even use the manure in terms of, getting more food produced. So the more you are localized, the more sustainable you are. So people creating sustainable products and selling abroad, I don't see that as an answer to sustainability. So I'm just going to comment. I'm going to tell you is what according to me is happening in funds is people are also making it a fashion statement now that we now have a sustainable fund, right? And without understanding the entire context of sustainability and wanting to make an impact, they want to obviously make money because a lot of sustainable startups are coming up. And I said this right in the beginning of what I look in the founder, right? The founder should have some purpose and be completely aware that they are solving an environment problem while solving a customer problem, and it's not like they start solving an environment problem, but now they see that you make more money by solving a customer problem and completely shift there. So creating a fund first before getting your thesis right, in terms of besides saying okay, like we should also have one sustainable fund, is very dangerous because you will be under pressure to do all the wrong things and then pick up companies who can probably just communicate to you very well instead of actually looking at problem. The reality is most people it's not been easy to solve customer problems in this. So if you are in a hurry to deploy, you will most likely end up making a mistake. So yes, having a fund already is the wrong pressure already that you got to deploy. So you got to get your thesis right. The way to get the thesis right is to read a lot and see what some companies globally are successful doing, and then take it from there. If we don't understand how this entire carbon movement works, and I read this book called Carbon Credit of Everything, besides many other articles, was a fantastic learning. And that's why I decided to quit leather, because in terms of food, that is, is the highest form of carbon emitting, this thing. So I think increasing first complete awareness, come up with thesis, and the largest in that has been solar. That's why so many funds who are into climate have actually backed solar. The clear energy efficiency has clear economics available. Right. And looking at that and building around themes that are already working instead of looking at new themes without understanding the entire context will put you in trouble.
Interesting, very interesting. So being local, solar,
efficiency,
yeah.
Efficiency is working now, right? The more efficient you are, and places where people like, again, Lucro have been able to create products, I would definitely say that they need help in scaling. The more the money that goes there, the faster the transition will happen.
Interesting. Thank you so very much.
Thanks. That's that.
That's a lot of talking, man.